We have allegedly had an unprecedented leak from the Supreme Court of the United States, or SCOTUS. If true, it is, like I said, unprecedented and other first. And there's a lot of ramifications that go along with it. Yeah, let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of the Marty Chronicles on the Conservative Take platform. I'm Marty Nalitz. Thanks for viewing us. As I mentioned earlier, and you no doubt know this, we're told there's been a leak from SCOTUS regarding the abortion bill that they've been undertaking. If true, as I said, it's unprecedented. It has never happened before. I don't even know if it's criminal, but it is an incredible breach of decorum. Let's get to, first of all, what actually happens with the Supreme Court. How do they do things? You know what happens when a bill is being heard. It's heard like any other bill or any other argument in court. They hear it. What the Supreme Court typically does is, following the arguments very shortly after that, they will have an informal vote. So it's not binding. As I said, it's informal, but you kind of know the way things are going. Now, in this case, and by the way, this case stems from in this case, the observers of SCOTUS, some people do this all the time and are very good at it. Most people believed that the consequence of this hearing was going to be Roe versus Wade was going to be overturned. Donald Trump kind of remade that court. Neil Gorsuch has been a strongly reliable conservative voice. Amy Coney Barrett, too early to tell, although her rulings in the past on things like abortion, I think she has 7 kids. So she would seem to be very strong in that area. Kavanaugh, I am not as enamored with from a conservative point of view as many others, but he would seem to be reliable. Chief Justice John Roberts, you never know. So they take an informal vote. Following that, each of the justices will then set out to write an opinion on his or her ruling. What was leaked was what's called a draft resolution from Justice Alito. And in it, it seems to indicate very strongly that at least 5 of the justices were going to vote in the way he's writing and overturn Roe versus Wade. So that's the process. And I want to make sure you're clear as well that if this happens, if this plays out the way we're saying, it doesn't criminalize abortion. It doesn't do that. What it does, it returns it to the state level. So if California wants to allow you to do whatever torture you want to babies, that's going to still be allowed in California. Texas, Mississippi, Florida, and others are allowed to live as they want to live. So it would mean that Texas, just to use an example, could in fact criminalize abortion and make it a crime to perform an abortion, to take part in an abortion. California doesn't have to follow suit. So that's kind of what would happen if this goes the way they're saying. Now, the rumor is that the clerks for one of the, let's say, part of the liberal wing of the Supreme Court leaked it. So let's get to what happens. Is this true or is it false? If it's false, it's just gotten a lot of people riled up. Let's make sure we're clear. The ruling on this is going to be handed down in a matter of weeks anyway. So the timing is suspicious. Some believe that the reason it was leaked by supposedly one of the liberal justice's clerks was to signal the beginning of the spring and summer rioting season. Hey, it's an election year. We've got to have riots all summer long. So that's one of the thoughts behind this. If it's true, again, it doesn't make any sense pragmatically, because we're going to know. If they believe that they can intimidate one of the 5 justices to change his or her vote, I believe they would do it. In my opinion, the left wing of politics has no compulsion whatsoever. They would threaten, they would do whatever they could or needed to do to get their way. It's really funny. if you believe we have ever seen an insurrection at the Capitol, I would go back to when Justice Kavanaugh was confirmed. Do you remember seeing the hordes of lunatics running up and down the hall, screaming, banging on doors, screaming at the top of their voices, trying to somehow throw a tantrum big enough to prevent the confirmation? I believe, hey, it's also an election year. What a coincidence. I believe that regardless, you will see rioting, let's just call it that, in major cities all over America, as we saw in 2020. Abortion is a hill that the left wing will gladly die on. They do not want to give that up. I keep saying this. I wonder, can America survive? Can America go forward? The people of Texas and the people of California have no similarities in the way they want to live. Massachusetts, Oklahoma, there's no similarity in the way they want to live. And one thing we've seen, again, in my opinion, the people of Massachusetts, California, or the leaders are never going to stand by while the people of Oklahoma and Texas live the way they want to live. It's just not going to happen. So there's a lot going on here, and we're going to see real quickly how it plays out. Again, let's go back to this ruling. Again, this ruling is coming no matter what. And most observers believe from the hearings that took place that Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. If it is overturned, yes, it sends a strong signal on abortion. And I want to be clear you understand my position. People who have known me and kind of the way I roll politically, I believe would back me up on this. I'm a purist and absolutist, whatever. I believe abortion should be criminal all across America. Here's the problem you run into with our Constitution, and I'm not defending it, but our Constitution says everything not clearly granted to the federal government in the Constitution is granted to the states. So that's an argument that says, well, abortion isn't specifically mentioned, so that should go to the states. The other side, and this is really the side I would take, is that the federal government has one main role, and that is to protect and defend the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of the citizens of the United States of America. Just because a baby is still inside the womb, they should still be protecting that baby. That is a living human being. So that's my argument. That's not an argument that's in play with this hearing. I want to make sure you understand that. I would love to see that argument come up, and we'll see what would happen with it. But that's not the argument that's in play right now. So what's happening here is the SCOTUS can, as a consequence of this Mississippi case that they're hearing, they can or could overturn Roe versus Wade and said this was always up to the state. And when they do that, or if they do that, they could return the Mississippi case to Mississippi and say, here is our ruling on Roe versus Wade. Now you guys rule on this, now that you have that ruling in place. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's going to be uncomfortable, let's put it that way, for a whole lot of people involved in this. I want to add one other thing. As a conservative, it's very common for conservatives to applaud, rightly so, the stances that Justice Thomas has taken over the years. He has been unfailingly true in almost every case. I can't think of one. Maybe there was one where I disagreed with him, but he has held to the Constitution and what the Constitution says. I want to add that I believe Justice Alito has really been the same way ever since he went on to the court. He has been, again, in my opinion, unfailing and unflinching to stick to the Constitution. So if this happens, if it plays out the way they're saying, I mentioned earlier the 10th Amendment. You probably know this. The 10th Amendment is the part of the Bill of Rights that actually says, hey, whatever we didn't put in the Constitution, the states are going to handle it. I believe that Congress, SCOTUS, have been intimidated by the 10th Amendment for a number of years because it's always been easy for the left to scream dog whistle, and the 10th Amendment was what some states used to justify slavery 150 years ago. The same argument that I would use for slavery, that the federal government protects life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of all citizens, regardless of their pigmentation, that is true. That's why I use that same argument on abortion. But back to what I was saying, there are many rulings that some think should have been left to the states and the federal government intervened. If they take this tack, I want to make the case that it's certainly an important ruling with regards to the abortion debate, but it also goes into many other areas that the federal government, I'm thinking of education as one, but, the Congress and SCOTUS has been afraid to attach the 10th Amendment to it. So we'll see how that plays out. There's a lot more coming on this story. Again, if this is true, it's an unprecedented historic breach of decorum for SCOTUS. Whether it's a crime or not, someone else will have to decide. And if it came from the liberal wing, trust me, no one's going to call it a crime. It's just not going to happen. But if it did happen, it's unprecedented. But hey, we're in unprecedented times, aren't we? We don't see things that happen today we never dreamed would happen a few years ago. We'll leave it right there, and we'll continue to follow this with you. Keep it tuned to the Conservative Take platform. See you next time.